Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Shots Fired podcast. We're your hosts. I'm Mark Rutledge, and this is Kyle Schoberg.
Today, we're going to watch a video out of LAPD where a ordinary domestic violence call turns into a SWAT call out, and we're going to demonstrate and show you how the suspect actually dictated the officer's tactics, which caused this whole thing to spiral out of control. We brought in the studio with us today, Scott Savage. Scott, thanks for making the trip down here, visiting us. This is now twice that you've endured us with your presence on an episode. So thank you very much.
Thanks for having me.
Tell everybody a little bit about you, your company, and how they can sign up for one of your classes.
Yeah, my name's Scott Savage, recently retired police officer, did 24 years as a cop in California, survived that. I own a law enforcement training company called Savage Training Group. We're trying to raise the bar of law enforcement training. We've got about 17 instructors. You two are among them. So happy to have you guys as instructors, and we travel around the country providing law enforcement training.
Excellent. Well, make sure you guys go to savagetraininggroup.com, get signed up for a class. If you want to host one, click the link. He will send the instructors out to you. It is free of charge, and you'll get free seats.
Yep. So we ask every guest certain questions, but we've already asked you the questions and a follow-up question. So this is going to be a curveball for you.
Send it.
Without looking around, how many lights do we have in this studio?
7.
I actually don't even know.
How many is it?
It's 7.
Is it really?
Is
it?
Dude, the guy knows everything.
Yeah.
That's
Damn
a
it.
wild guess.
All right.
Yeah. We didn't even prep him for this.
No.
Kyle didn't even know
I
that
wasn't
was
even
going to be the
prepped for that,
question.
yeah.
That's my thing, though, is just I don't know things, but I just say it really confidently. And then every now and then it's right, and it looks like, golly, how do you know that? Yeah.
Well, I thought for 1 second, I was like, did I miscount? Oh, no. 2 of them are off, so it does leave 7. So nice work. That's why you are the best, and you run a pinnacle company.
Oh, thank you.
Well played. Okay, let's jump into this video. It's kind of long. We're not going to play the whole video for you guys. We're going to kind of show you in chunks, but we want to really show you how an ordinary domestic violence call where they go to take this guy into custody, the guy ends up dictating the actions of the officers. They try to de-escalate, probably try to de-escalate a little bit too long. We want to talk about that. Ultimately, guy barricades into a bedroom, threatens the officers with a knife, says he has a gun, fires shots out the window while the SWAT team is there. Ultimately, the SWAT team ends up making entry into this guy's bedroom where he's barricaded, and they find him deceased. He had taken his own life. So there's a lot to learn from this video from a tactical standpoint, and that's what we want to talk about. So first, as we're watching this video, officers contact the victim, do a good job, get her statement. She's got clear visible injury. She's alleging that he had strangled her the night before, earlier in the morning, punched her, scratched her, causing visible injury to her. In the state of California, that is a mandatory arrest. It's a felony. He's going to be taken into custody. So the officers are in the apartment. Now, one thing to take note on, I think, in this video is the amount of clutter and stuff inside this apartment. There is a ton of stuff everywhere, right? It's almost like she's like a hoarder house, right? We've all been in those. So from a tactical standpoint, that always kind of poses a problem, right? There's just a lot of things in there. The cops end up making their way down the hallway, and they go into this bedroom where I guess he was sleeping on the bed, or
I think he was faking it for sure.
Yeah,
Playing
I think
possum,
so.
they call that.
I think so, which we often see that on these types of calls. They go to wake him up. He gets up. He's compliant, gets out of the bed, and he actually walks out into the hallway with the officers. It spirals when they tell him he's being detained. And that's when the officer grabs him. And that's where this whole thing starts. The officer grabs him. He tells him he's being detained. They're investigating a domestic violence incident. And the dude is not going with the program. Pulls away from the officer. Now the officer loses grip of him. And they're standing in this hallway with all this clutter. And the officers are trying to de-escalate this guy into handcuffs. That is where I believe it went on a little bit too long. And the suspect then started to dictate that everything that went on from there. Puts his hand behind his back, tells the officers he's got a knife, and then that's when he retreats into the bedroom.
Right now, this is domestic violence to me in my home.
What happened last?
What she's doing, manipulating the situation, lying to you, right? You guys coming at me with a predetermined fucking notion or whatever, when I'm telling you that I'm requesting a supervisor so that I know how it is that I can exercise my rights on fucking, this is what's going on, right? Yeah. Be a motherfucking sergeant right now and go in there and ask her, did you fucking strike the man with the motherfucking dinner plate with no fucking aggression? I want her to go to jail or pay. Fuck, man.
I'm gonna ask her. I'm telling you right now, and it's on video.
And I want her to pay for it, just like I'm paying for some shit I didn't even do right now. Why are you so adamant about me paying for something I didn't even fucking do when she's gonna tell you she did something and you don't want to fucking make her pay for it? What she did do.
We need you to turn around and put your hands behind your back.
I'm asking you a question, man.
No, listen,
you guys are gonna create a fucking. Look, you guys are gonna create.
You're done talking.
You guys are gonna create a situation, man.
We're done. We're done talking.
I have a knife behind me, and I will poke it in me. I will poke it in me. I will poke it in me.
You're gonna get
I'm asking you, Sergeant. It's gonna fall into it. My kid's mental well-being. My kid's mental well-being. My kid's mental well-being. My kid's mental well-being.
47 need to back up.
Sergeant, I'm asking you to not violate my rights.
There's 2 kids in there. Here, I got this. Deadly force forward. I listen to you. I need you to listen to me.
That's what the fuck you created.
Pass the shield up.
Okay, I'm gonna close the door now. So now you're not gonna bum rush it. Hey! Stay back!
Hold on. Back up
now. I told you guys.
It's loaded, right?
Yep.
Barricading.
All right, let's get those kids. Let's get the kids out of the room.
So. Yeah, and these officers are doing a great job. I mean, this video that shows just incredible work by these guys, and they're dealing in a really tough city to police. And it just goes to show you, I think that officers, especially in California, are just being constantly berated with this whole de-escalation thing. Got to de-escalate this, de-escalate them, all this kind of stuff. And the thing that's maybe missing from that is that we can't de-escalate anyone, right? We can offer de-escalation when appropriate, but ultimately the suspect gets a vote. They dictate the tactics, and we respond to that. They dictate what happens by their behavior, and we got to respond to it. This is an example of a guy that basically talks the officers out of handcuffing him, right? Go to put your hands on somebody. They pull away. Hey, I don't want to do that. And the officer, again, trying to do the right thing. Hey, just want to minimize this, keep this from, spiraling into a violent encounter. Hey, buddy. Hey, pal. And we're trying to talk him into handcuffs. And really, I think the video says they talked to him for about a half hour, and that's the officer's decision, right? It's hard to say, tactically on the ground why he said, hey, I'm not going to try to get my partners over here. Hey, partner. This dude's 148, which is our code for he's resisting arrest. The partner comes over. Okay, now there's 3 of us, buddy. We are putting your hands behind your back. You are getting detained, against your will. But whatever, he made the decision not to do that. That's his decision to make. He's reading the play. He's seeing what we're not. But it just goes to show you that a half hour later, once the officer said, okay, well, I've sort of investigated this. I do have probable cause to make the arrest. Hey, buddy, you're under arrest. And it goes to grab him. That's when the dude puts his hands behind the back. I got a knife. So it's just maybe instructive for us as officers to go, this whole de-escalation thing doesn't always work, right? It's not me just giving this guy more time doesn't necessarily produce a good outcome. And if this dude did have a knife on him, which I don't know if he did, why would you put it behind your back if you really did? Don't know. That's all the more reason that we want this dude in cuffs and we want positive control over him.
Yeah.
And I think if you have that opportunity, you do it. And they knew they were going to because they saw the injuries. They knew it was domestic violence. The domestic violence calls are very, very dangerous. They're unpredictable. You're in someone else's home, and most people know that if the cops are there for domestic violence, someone's going to jail. And generally, it's the person that does not call is going to jail in this case. And I think the way he was positioned and laying in there, I mean, those officers, they did a great job. They contacted the victim. They're whispering. They're figuring stuff out. And I'll tell you, it's scary going in that room and you see him, how he's positioned laying on that bed. Like, that's a very odd position. So I think if anyone's seeing this, like, take note of that. He is laying possum. He's looking away. There's no blankets on him. It's 10:30 in the morning. He can probably hear. He probably knows that they're there. She probably told him I'm calling the police because there is domestic violence history between the two.
Yeah.
And then they're telling him to get up. Like, that's, I mean, your heart drops for a second, hoping he doesn't roll over with the weapon. And then he gets up and comes to you, and you're going to put your hands on him. Like, you go all the way and you handcuff that person. You don't allow that opportunity to pull away.
Yeah, I think once you've made that decision to grab that guy, which they did, I mean, and he tries to pull away, I agree in that once you've already determined that that's what you're going to do, then that's what you need to do. Now, so he retreats back into the bedroom. Says he has the knife, right? The officers are kind of like, okay, let's back out a little bit. They retreat back into the living room, which is exactly what I would have done, because now we have a barricade. This dude's barricaded in that bedroom and you don't know what's in that room. Where it becomes interesting is there's kids. They've identified that there are kids in that back bedroom. And we were talking about tactically, how do you get those kids out of that room to go past the doorway where the suspect is at, who now is saying he has a firearm, and get him out of there. You know, something we had talked about that you and I talk about also in the class is, if you're in a situation where you do have someone barricaded in a room, especially someone claiming that they have a firearm, you know, what is an alternative way to get somebody out of a bedroom? Most bedrooms have windows. If you have the opportunity, or you can, maybe have someone get a ladder from the outside, throw that ladder up against that window, and maybe evacuate those kids or whoever is in that back room through a window. I can't remember where we were, maybe Pennsylvania, where they're like, yeah, we don't have windows in bedrooms.
Oh yeah, everyone has windows except for.
I guess folks in Pennsylvania don't. Yeah. So okay, well, so that could be a challenge. So how do we deal with that? Well, I think in this scenario, if you have a shield, or you have access to a shield, which most agencies do nowadays on a patrol level, get a shield up there, block that door with that shield, and then have those kids or whoever come out of that bedroom. I do think the officers in this scenario actually did a great job in that they held that door. Rounds are going to go through drywall, which we'll talk about in a minute, and they were ushering those kids out. You know, they're telling them to hurry and run and stuff. So tactically, there were some challenges, I think, with this scenario that I think is why we're talking about it, to learn from, and maybe a little thinking outside the box.
Yeah, that's the key, I think, is to learn from it. Like you said, I mean, we're not trying to Monday morning quarterback what these guys are doing, but we just want to, what are the learning lessons? Let's distill those. Let's figure them out and apply them in the future. And so that's why it's so important to talk about this stuff. And man, something I keyed up on that I thought these guys did amazing is the decision-making process, right? Because if you just take a step back and think about it, these folks were able to decide, you know, he barricades himself and they go, hey, barricade. This dude's a barricade. Additional resources, distance. So call for less lethal, get a supervisor here. Let's start thinking about containment. Where can he get out? Oh, wait, we've got these kids in there. I don't want this to be a hostage barricade. I want it to be a solo barricade. Okay, how do I do that? Let's get the kids out of there.
Yeah.
Okay, how do I do that? You know, and there you can see them going through this process. And for anyone who watches this and goes, oh, they should have done it faster. It's like, yeah, right. This is about the speed that it goes, because we have the benefit of watching this with 2020 hindsight. We know what happened, and we're sitting here in a nice, comfortable environment, right? These guys are in the middle of it. They got radios going off. They're looking around. We don't know what this dude's doing. They're in danger. It takes time, but just kudos to them for that decision-making process to go, I don't want this to become a hostage barricade because this dude says he's got a gun and he's hostile. How do I get the kids out? And yeah, if I'll assume that they couldn't go out the window. Let's say it's elevated. There's bars. They probably had a good reason why. But yeah, if you've got a window and you can make that happen, that works. And these guys said, hey, we're just going to hold on the door. Joe, you're going to run down there and get the kids. He's like, now run with them. And we're going to hope that he doesn't start shooting right now. And people can watch and go, oh, they're in a crossfire. Yeah, momentarily, it's true. But
I mean, not much more you can do.
They're doing a pretty damn good job. And I would just contrast that with maybe what happened in Uvalde. And you're like, Uvalde, what does that have to do with it? Well, check it out. When you watch the documentary about Uvalde, which you can see on YouTube, Frontline Uvalde documentary, they have the tapes from the officers post-shooting interviews. Yeah. This is the only time you can see that. And those officers say, we couldn't make sense of this. We couldn't decide whether this was an active shooter who's paused or a hostage barricade.
Yeah.
We don't know how to differentiate those two, and so that's what led to some decision-making there. So just, it's pretty high level stuff for patrol officers to be able to go hostage barricade, solo barricade, the differences there, all the stuff they're doing. Just want to give them a little kudos, a little shout out for those guys. Pretty rad what they were able to do it so quickly as well.
Yeah, and they're calm. Their demeanor throughout this whole thing was calm. No one's yelling, screaming, losing their minds like in other videos that we've seen cops behave. So they get the kids out, and then from there, once the kids are out, they're in the living room, and one of the cop makes mention, hey, we should probably get out of here because he says he's got a gun and bullets go through drywall. I think what is your guys' thought on, you always hear the term, we don't want to give up the ground that we've taken.
That's never made sense to me. From all the SWAT training, you do stuff the safest way you possibly can. And just because you're close to them doesn't mean you're in the best position. In this situation, I would definitely have backed out. That's a great call from him to say that, like, hey, we can get shot at through here. Yeah. You're doing no service to anything. If anything, you're making it a worse situation because you are so close to that person now. If he does something, then it's an immediate response, where if you have a lot more distance. And still, I mean, we don't know how many floors this was, if it's a fourplex or what this apartment complex is, if it's more of a logistical nightmare to evacuate everybody around, but you've got to back out. I think it's a great call on that for sure.
I thought so too. And that for that young officer to be like, hey, he can shoot through that drywall. You know, how many times are we stacked up, quote unquote, behind drywall? And what is drywall? It's a little piece of paper with chalk in the middle of it. Yeah. It's that thick. And every, 18 inches or so, there's a piece of wood. So that's what you're standing behind that you think is like, oh, I'm impervious to bullets. No, you're not. And another thing, a great reason for deciding what these guys did, which is to get more distance, is distance gives us time. Time to do what? Time to react, time to plan. If we stay inside the kitchen and the dude pops the door open and pops out, I've got milliseconds to decide whether, is that a gun he's holding? Is it not a gun? And I want to give myself more time. So if I'm outside behind armor, behind an oak tree, behind a patrol car, whatever, and dude pops out of the front door, I'm not in the immediate danger zone, right? Yeah, I'm in a threat zone, but it's not right this second where time is so compressed, because the more time, just even a second or two, for me to look at that guy and see what is he holding and him to try to acquire me as a target, that's safer for me, and I got more time to do him. Stay in the kitchen, he pops out, he doesn't have to acquire me. He can just point shoot at me, and I'm going to wear those rounds. So again, great reason these guys went, yeah, I think we're out of here. Yeah. And I love how one partner was like, hey, I got something, you know. He's not just sitting there while the Sarge is here and I'm not going to say anything. No, you get to speak up when it's a safety issue. Yeah. Please tell us when you see something that's unsafe.
Yeah, I thought that was awesome that he said that, and then everybody clued into it after that. Like, yeah, let's get out of here. Yeah. I agree with both of you. I'm the same. I think backing out is the better option in that. You know, you don't know if that bedroom has interconnecting rooms that could then lead to other sides of the house that you haven't even cleared yet. You know, so I'm of a big fan of, if you're in a structure and a gun is now a part of this scenario, I'm of that of, I want to get out because I don't know the layout of this place, and I haven't cleared everything in this room. And the last thing I want is for him to then pop out of another room, you know, to include, or not to even include, you guys already said it, the rounds are going to go right through drywall. So I'm not sure if it's even worth saying like that's a tactic of like a thing of the past of like, oh, we don't want to give up real estate. You know, I don't know, but
you know, when it does come up, and I've heard people say that in our training courses, is we give them a scenario where you get a call in the middle of the night, you're on patrol, and it's an abandoned vehicle or a vehicle stopped at a stop sign for like a long time and they haven't moved. And so maybe he's drunk, he fell asleep or something like that. And a patrol officer responds out, it's you, and you stop a few car lengths behind the car, you run the plate, you get out with your flashlight and you go up and look at the guy and he's asleep, stopped at a stop sign, but there's a pistol sitting on the on the seat next to him. And the question you pose to the student is, would you A, stay where you're at and call for additional resources? Hey, got a guy with a gun here in a car kind of thing. Or B, go back to your car or an oak tree or somewhere else and call for the resources. And the folks that say, A, I got to stay up because I got to see him and I don't want to give up real estate and I can see more and then I can react. Yeah. That, if you just start playing that out a little bit, but you're also within the effective range of his weapon. Yeah, if he does wake up suddenly and you say, it's the police, don't reach for the gun. I mean, humans will be startled and may reach for the gun and then get shot. So again, just like, I know we've talked about this a lot, but like playing chess versus playing checkers, like, let me play this out a few steps ahead. Yeah. How is this probably going to go down? And then how do I put myself in the best position to not get shot by this guy? Yeah.
Yeah. There is a video that happened here in California a few years ago where I think 5 or maybe like 5 or 7 officers fired their guns for that same scenario. And I think cops shouldn't get stuck in the mind frame of, I was told that I should never give up real estate. So if I'm in a situation, I don't want to ever give up real estate. I don't think so. I think you need to be flexible. So these guys were very flexible in this scenario. They retreat outside and everything outside that happens after the fact is out of their control. They're trying to negotiate with this guy to come out. You know, he's dictating what's going on inside that room, whether, you know, he starts firing shots off. So now we definitely know he's got a gun. So which just reaffirms their decision to leave was a good idea. And ultimately the SWAT team ends up making entry into that house. And I have a question to ask you about that, and find him deceased under the bed. He had tied a sheet or something around his neck. As a SWAT team, if you're going to try to gas somebody out, and we talked about it earlier, but there's a lot of stuff in that house. I mean, probably not going to be reasonable to lob gas into that house, knowing that it's probably going to start catching all this stuff on fire. What could be a alternative to that?
For this one, I mean, it's an apartment. So, I mean, that makes it even more of a challenge because depending on the ventilation systems, it could contaminate other apartments. But like a house you're talking about, the hoarder house, I mean, there is always options of having the Bearcat. They have basically like a long probe on the end. You can pierce walls and just force gas in there without actually putting a canister inside the rooms.
Yeah.
That's an option.
Yeah, I was recently on a call where a guy was shooting at us from inside of his apartment, helping the sheriff's department out, and they did just that. It was an apartment, and they punctured a hole. They put the gas through a hole in the wall that they created, obviously.
Yeah,
and did it that way. So there's other ways to deploy gas other than just, you know, lobbing gas, whatever, with knowing that there's a high likelihood that stuff is probably going to catch on fire, which is going to be very problematic for everybody. So,
yeah. And who knows in this one, I mean, maybe they had somebody, the window in that apartment was open. Maybe they had eyes in there. They couldn't see the guy, you know, for hours. They're trying to call him out. He ended up being under a mattress. So there's all kinds of different reasons why it went that way.
Yeah. So overall, I thought the officers did a great job. I would have hated to see the officers actually force the issue and go into that room after he made those threats. I'm really glad to see that those cops had the wherewithal to stop, recognize what they were dealing with, which was a barricade, and then get the kids out, and then they end up getting out themselves. And they recognized what they had to deal with, and I felt handled it appropriately. You know, sometimes we see videos where cops, you know, may have gone into that bedroom after him making those threats, you know,
yeah, and
it's at risk.
Yeah, and cops need to be able to make the decisions, right? Good decision making is crucial. Like most cops spend a lot of time on manipulative skills like shooting, fighting, that kind of stuff, and that's important. But you know, we can train a monkey to make a room entry. Yeah. You know, with enough bananas, I can train a monkey to make a room entry. What we can't train it to do is make these high-level decisions like they're making, like go, don't go, push in, get distance, all that kind of stuff. That's where the rubber meets the road. And these guys did, I think, a really, really good job in trying to do everything they could to minimize a violent confrontation between the police and him. I mean, they had a crime. They got the kids out. They're like, this is a criminal solo barricade. Get distance, call in SWAT. SWAT has a million different ways we can get this dude out. I'm sure they use gas, robots. Okay, he's not around anymore. Let's go in and take a look at him. And, you know, once they made entry and contact them, they brought in TEMS, you know, tactical EMS folks from the fire department. And I thought those folks did a great job too of keeping it very professional. You know, when they're inside and they're examining this dude to see if he's still alive, their conversation is just business. It's all business stuff. It's just about, is he alive? Is he dead? What do we got here? Are we code 4? You know, that's great. You don't sometimes see that. You see people saying things on body cam that you're like, that's pretty cringy to say. Yeah. It doesn't make us look very professional. So hats off to those guys too. So
yeah.
Okay, you know what? I see a body.
See what?
I see maybe an arm and a tattoo.
He's really trying to get under there now. Under the bed?
Yeah, under the bed. I see an arm and a tattoo. A lot of color. A lot of blood. I don't think the full pan's gonna do anything. You just have to move some of this clutter. Is that good right now? We're getting into these little pressure right now with no chain. Doorknob is no visible trauma though, from what you can see. No visible trauma. I can see but see, this thing is wrapped around his neck really tight. What are you doing? Circulation. Alright, I think we're good for A14. We have a
Yeah, very professional. Yeah, I mean, I think we can all agree LAPD is known for that, right? So
They did do a good job, and it's a good thing that they didn't go in and
Yeah,
force
I'm
that
glad.
because they did find a loaded or a handgun right next to him.
Yep.
right.
So
Yeah.
it could have been used. So thankfully, everyone's not injured from that.
yeah, I mean, it's a quick video, but again, I like watching these because there's good learning lessons from everything, and I thought they demonstrated a good job. So, you have anything else to add? Any weird questions that you feel like you need to ask Scott, or
I have a lot of questions I want to ask Scott, but not here.
I have a lot of questions I'd like to ask you. But
Oh, geez.
I got one. You know, they called this an in custody death.
oh, that's right.
And I called some of our instructors that were they're LAPD, and I didn't really understand why they classified that, but it's kind of interesting. They call it, if you look in the video, in custody death,
Yeah.
but he's not really in custody. It's kind of like, and it's not even. I guess you could say we put gas in the house, so it's a use of force and that kind of thing. But
they're not in physical custody.
They're not in physical custody. He died in his own hands. So I'm sure if you got some viewers that are from LAPD, they can clarify maybe why it's in custody death. But just thought that was kind of odd.
Yeah, I know. We were discussing that, and I don't think any of the three of us came up with a rational explanation as to why that would be an in custody death. But they obviously are claiming is that, so they have their reasons. So
Yeah.
if you, like Scott said, if you're from LAPD and you watch this, please enlighten us as to what your policies would be for that. So
Scott, thanks for coming in the studio, clarifying all this stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. Again, you guys make sure savagetraininggroup.com. There's a slew of classes all over the country that you can choose to pick from. Attend the class, and if you want to have a class hosted where you're at, host it. It's free. Send instructors out to you. You just got to provide the room, some chairs, and that's about it. I mean, pretty simple.
A little water or coffee wouldn't hurt too.
Shoot.
But, you know,
Yeah.
we don't want to ask for too much.
Yeah. I mean, maybe some donuts.
I mean, come on.
We taught a class for you, and they brought parfaits for everyone.
Parfaits, which is
Parfaits,
a
like legit parfaits.
French word for
Yeah, Mark.
yogurt.
And
Maybe.
fruit.
Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, and some granola.
Yeah, it was very
good.
nice. That
That's
was a great
awesome.
place.
Yeah,
to
shout out to
went.
Brisbane. That was Brisbane.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Bay Area,
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, that concludes that episode. We will see you guys on the next one. Take care and be safe.
Yep.